it just feels like I'm trying to keep the family together, whereas him, it's like I just don't know that. Like, obviously, he didn't treat me nicely. He's a bit aggressive type.
Now, when you say aggressive, what does that mean? Did he beat the
Like
hell
he
out of
used
you?
to, yeah. You could.
So this video of Mahdi and Yusuf popped up in my news feed. I saw a bit of it and wanted to share my perspective as a cognitive behavioral coach, someone who's trained in mental health, how I would respond to Yusuf if she reached out to me for a consultation. Obviously, my responses are going to be a bit different than Mahdi's responses, and that's to be expected as we have a different professional lens by which we engage these type of marital issues.
And so you could say I was bad in a way that we were having like major issues with each other, and so I left the day before.
So a quick point, and this is why it's important to um, have a modality, a model by which you use to regulate your emotions. The model that I use, CBT, would encourage Yusuf, right, to not engage in labeling of self. So starting off with, I was bad, it's problematic because it's a label of self, it's a label of the totality of you. When in reality, there's no logical way to assess you. You're never a bad wife. You're never a bad mother. You're just a fallible human being who has skill sets that need to be improved. And it's important that you talk to yourself this way. And it's important in a marriage and a relationship that you talk in this way because that's something you can work with. So, for example, if you're saying you're a bad wife, really what you're saying, if we were working together, we would get to, I would assume, is maybe you're a bad communicator. Maybe you're a bad listener, right? So we see the skill set that needs to improve. The skill set that can improve is communication, listening, right? Being supportive. Those are skill sets that can be learned, right? You're not born with that. You learn that over time, right? When we see our parents in a functional or dysfunctional relationship, it influences the skill sets that we take into a relationship. So labeling yourself as bad is not really constructive or logical because again, it gives you or your spouse nothing to work with, right? Just saying that you're bad, but identifying, you know what, I need to improve in my communication. It's better because again, it gives you something to work on, it gives you something to go and look for, right? Assistance on, reach out to a coach or a counselor and say, look, I'm married, but I'm having issues with communication. With labeling yourself, the question becomes, what is that criteria that you're using to label yourself as bad? Right? Is it how you relate to your husband? Is it how you relate to your children? How does it relate to your family, your siblings? Is it like what exactly is it that you're using to qualify you as being bad? And if it's just to your husband, okay, if you're a bad wife, that's the label. Okay, is it, when he comes home from work, you're a bad wife? Is it when he's not in a good mood, you don't respond properly, so that makes you a bad wife? Is it just the times when you don't respond properly that makes you a bad wife? Like, what is the criteria? And the reality is, the criteria would be subjective, something you create, right? And that, again, would not be a true representation of all of the hats that you wear, all of the roles that you take on as a wife. is you're taking one example, one moment, or the moments, right, wherein that you didn't respond in a constructive way, and then you're taking that, you're filtering out the others. We call this filtering. You filter out the other evidence that proves that you're not a bad wife. You're just focusing on those attributes, those moments wherein that you didn't live up to your standard, right? And there's nothing wrong with having a standard. But understand, these are the attributes that I need to meet that standard. And I'm going to identify the gaps where I can improve. I'm going to get assistance with those. And that'll help me live up to that standard. That'll help me meet that standard because I'm identifying directly what is the issue. I have poor communication skills. I have a problem with regulating my emotions. And so in doing that, you have a map on what you need to work on versus just labeling yourself as bad. I'm a bad wife. That doesn't help your husband help you. That doesn't give him what he may think may be the attributes that make you, quote unquote, a bad wife, may not be the attributes that you've identified that make you, quote unquote, a bad wife. So it would be important for you to communicate to him, I love you, but I think I have a problem with communicating to you how I feel when you do A, B, and C. And from there, you may hear from him that, actually, that doesn't bother me when you do this. Rather, what bothers me is when you act like this, right? So what the motto would say is, we don't label ourselves or others, right? So that's important. So if your husband is falling short in a certain area, we don't want to label him either, right? We want to particularly identify what are those things, what are those attributes, what are those skill sets that you would like him to improve on.
Now 22, and I have a 1-year-old son. Unfortunately, I'm having some issues with my husband. And so you could say I was bad in a way that we were having like major issues with each other. And so I left the day before Eid last year. And unfortunately, because of the rule of this country and certain things that I said, and that the fact that we have a young child, English law, social services, things like that got involved, and it became basically impossible for me to go back. Now things are starting to kind of like drift away, but now my family don't want me back with him. And so I'm just finding it really hard. Like, it just feels like I'm trying to keep the family together, whereas him, it's like, I just don't know how to. I want to be a good wife. That's basically how I'm asking. Like, it just feels like I'm trying to keep the family together, whereas him, it's like, I just don't know how to. I want to be a good wife. That's basically how I'm asking. Like, it just feels like I'm trying to keep the family together, whereas him, it's like, I just don't know how to. I want to be a good wife. That's basically how I'm asking.
Yusuf, you left before Eid, the day before Eid. Social services are involved, and you can't go back. You have a 1-year-old child. Typically, Yusuf, when social services are involved, and you've said something, and you can't go back, and I'm assuming the child is with you, then there's typically abuse, either to you or to the child.
Hold on. We just had a whole bunch of information, and it's not making coherent sense to me right now. So what exactly is the issue? Number one, are you two married? Like, religiously, are you married?
Yep, we're married. We're still married.
But you're not living together?
No, we're not living with each other. We see each other once a week at the moment.
So you do see each other then? So you have a marriage of some sort?
Yeah, we do. We're just having some issues, and my family don't want me to go back with them.
Who doesn't have issues, Yusuf? Who doesn't have issues? We all have issues.
Marriages do have issues, but let me give you 2 ways in which you can categorize issues. We want to look at them as marital dissatisfaction and marital disturbance. Dissatisfaction can be constructive and healthy, right? Because typically when we respond, the emotions attached to dissatisfaction are concern, sadness, irritation, annoyance, frustration. a healthy jealousy. But the emotions attached to marital disturbance is depression, anxiety, rage, and anger, unhealthy jealousy. So, yes, marriages have issues and you have issues in your marriage. Okay, great that you're identifying that. But the next thing we need to do is we also need to identify, how do you feel when those issues arise, right? What are the actual emotions that come up for you and your husband? Because that'll let us know, do we start addressing it from a space of dissatisfaction or a space of disturbance? Because those have two different emotional goals and two different thinking paths, narratives to go down to get to a certain emotional goal, right? And outcome, right?
Issues, that's normal. Yani, why don't your family want you to be? Why do your family want you to leave the father of your son? What is their reason? If your family was sat here right now and I asked them this very question, what would they say in response?
Well, they would say like, oh, he didn't provide for her anything, and like he's only working for his family back home, and also that like obviously he didn't treat me nicely. He's a bit aggressive type, you could say. I'm not going to go further into it because I don't want to talk bad of him, but you can understand. And so I know him as a person, right? And I know what he is, but
So your family wants you to leave him. They say he's not providing. And you say that he's a bit aggressive. Your response is, but I know what he is. That's emotion talking. So first thing is, what is your support system? Right? Who's in your team? And it's a very important thing. So I hope, Yusuf, that you have a coach or a counselor or a therapist in your support system. I advise the sisters that I work with, predominantly 95%, 98% of my client base are Muslim women, UK, Canada, and the States. And I advise them all to build a support system whenever I hear of aggression and social services being involved. And in that support system, Yusuf, you need to have a male therapist, counselor, or coach. You may not need to see him as often, but you need to make sure that he's in that support system, along with, if you would like, a woman, a Muslim therapist, counselor, coach as well. But you need that balance in that support system. But you need that support system to help you. You need that logical person from the outside coming in to be able to look at the situation and not be swayed by the emotions that your family has, and also your emotions that you have for your husband. Hence your response, but I know him. I know him. So who is he then? And are you assessing him from a logical lens? Are you looking at all variables, or are you doing what you did earlier to yourself? Since this is an important thing. So when we engage in filtering, when we engage in a distorted way of viewing things, i.e. filtering out information when it comes to ourselves, we oftentimes can do that for others. And so my question would be, are you filtering out information when it comes to your husband? Are you only filtering in or filtering out the bad and keeping in the good, right? That which is functional versus filtering out what is dysfunctional. Because I would be curious if your family is seeing the dysfunction, hence them wanting you to not be with your husband.
I
So
find it
when you say aggressive, what does that mean? Did he beat the
like
hell
he
out of
used
you?
to. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Go on.
Hold on. Yusuf. Yusuf, and or any sister watching this. When a man is beating the hell out of you, you start preparing the gift to give him. And the gift you give him is the gift of your absence. You start strategizing that plan, that exit strategy, as soon as he stops beating the hell out of you. Yusuf. When a man beats the hell out of you, there's no more loyalty to the vision he sold you prior to marriage. Because he no longer has loyalty to that vision either. If he's marrying you with you being on his team, his program, helping him accomplish the vision that he set out for his family, his legacy, a part of his vision is beating the hell out of you, then that's no vision you should want to be a part of. That's a recipe for you having to exist. That's an exist strategy where you just exist. That's it. Nothing more than that. No thriving, no rearing of children. This is not what we were called to be as believers. Yusuf. When a man puts his hands on you, you start developing your exit strategy right then. There is no reason to be in a marriage when a man is beating the hell out of you. So you're 22, Yusuf. When you were in diapers, I was working in a domestic violence shelter for women. I'm not speaking just off the top of my head. I live this. I know what happens when women are abused by men. I know what happens when men are abused by women. So my perspective holds true for both. Brothers, if you out there and a woman is putting her hands on you, part in kindness. Pack her stuff up and put her on the next flight or get her in the next cab back to her father's home. ASAP. And show her that you the G that you are. You get her in a nice cab. You put some money up, put some bread up. Get a nice fancy cab when she goes home. You know what I mean? One of them little nice Cadillac type joints. Get a nice one. Send her with flowers. Like that. Get out. Similarly though, sisters, if a man is putting his hands on you, there's in that moment, all you need to be thinking is exit strategy. Be strategic. There is no loyalty to the vision he shared with you that he sold you on prior to marriage if he's beating the hell out of you. And so this is the other thing, Yusuf, that you also, Yusuf, you need a therapist or a coach. If you need, reach out, NasheedAl-Amin.com. But Yusuf, you need to be working with somebody. Because the fact that you kind of say this flippantly, like, yeah, you could say that in terms of him beating the hell out of you. Yusuf, you don't value you enough. Yusuf, you don't value you enough. And this is going to hit hard. But you don't value the well-being of your children enough. What you're doing is you're prioritizing your emotions. You drunk off love. Yusuf, I've worked with countless sisters like you in your situation. Think about it. Left before the day before Eid. There had to be a major situation going on for you to leave the day before Eid. Most women, most brothers, we'd have suck it up just to get through Eid. You left the day before Eid. Social services is involved. You can't go back. It's a year later. You're trying to keep the marriage together. You say he's aggressive. Family doesn't want you to be with him. And he beats the hell out of you. And your question to Mahdi is essentially, how can you be a better wife? See, Yusuf, you've seen some things in life with your parents and your environment, what you consume in media, that has distorted your lens, your perception of you, distorted your perception of your worth. Because you have a distorted, dysfunctional way of viewing self. And that you need to work on. You've seen some things in life that you've created some meanings about self, others, and life conditions, and your Lord, that you carry with you into various relationships and in this marriage. And those meanings that you've created are unhealthy. They're dysfunctional. Because your husband is beating the hell out of you. And your question is, how do you be a better wife? Yusuf, I worked with countless women. I'm starting to question if your family even wanted you to marry him. I'm questioning if you saw some red flags before marriage and you didn't tell your family. Yeah, I would be interested. That would be the question that I would be asking. So if you found this beneficial, make sure you like and share and subscribe to the channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned to part 2.